Welcome to the Big Heart Business Show. My name is Carrie Shepard, business strategist, philanthropist, and believer. I'm on a mission to help entrepreneurs be more, do more, and give more beyond their business, and to do it with more heart and less hustle. Each week on the show, I'll be here with a message or interview from a powerhouse entrepreneur that has built their business by giving back. Together, we will inspire you, fuel you, and get you going with simple action steps and strategies to grow your purpose-driven business. Our philosophy here is that we can change the world one big heart business at a time. Let's get started. This is episode number 13 of the Big Heart Business Show. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Kate Boyd. Kate is a business coach and launch strategist who helps women building online businesses to launch their dreams with strategic action and high conversion rates so they can become more profitable more quickly. She combines a journalism degree, 3 years of online business experience, and 5+ years in nonprofit marketing to help others share and communicate their message and do business with heart, soul, and strategy to serve their audience while creating financial freedom for themselves. I love it, Kate. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have a fellow Texan on our show today.
That's right. Texas forever, right?
That's right. That's right. So I'd love for you just to kind of share with our audience a little bit of the behind the scenes of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So about 3 years ago, I guess technically the whole journey started about 4 years ago. I had just started working full-time. At my previous job, I started there part-time, and a job that sort of carried over from college was coaching cheerleading that I had done part-time while I was working part-time at the organization that I used to work for. And as I then transitioned in a full-time role, it became really clear that it would be a bit of a challenge to continue to work full-time and part-time somewhere else. Even though the cheerleading was really flexible and my boss was also very flexible, I actually did do both for a little bit. But for various reasons, I ended up stepping out of the part-time cheerleading coach role, but knew that there was still sort of a gap in this place where a lot of people were, a lot of new coaches were sort of being thrust into their roles without a lot of cheerleading experience or knowledge or any of that. And so it made me go, well, I have marketing skills. I have, years of cheerleading knowledge, and I've even taught other people cheerleading stuff because I was a camp instructor for a few years. Why not do a blog about it? So I started a blog to help cheerleading coaches, not just with the technique, but also with some of the leadership things or unique challenges that come with that kind of stuff. And a year later decided, you know what, I bet I could monetize this in some way. So I asked them what they wanted, and I launched my first product and officially turned that blog into a business that ran really well for 3 years. I'm in the process of selling that one right now, which is really exciting and weird, but good. And about a year ago, I really just felt a pull on my heart. I'm a person of faith, and inside this online entrepreneurial space, I know that I was struggling with some mindset things at the time. I was coming through anxiety and depression and coming out the other side and just feeling a little frustrated that I didn't see a lot, if any, resources on mindset or strategy or things that aligned with what I believed for myself in my personal life, which was really challenging. And being in a more fragile mental state at that time, I didn't really have the mental energy to kind of figure out how what I heard actually lined up with what I believed. And eventually I did. Once I sort of came through that and was a little bit stronger, I had that and realized that that was something that was also missing and that could be filled and that people would love to have from that perspective. And so I became a business coach for primarily for faith-driven women for then. And then recently actually just completely transitioned out of that, because as I was doing that and my clients were seeing results, what I was seeing in myself was that my chief goals and the way that I was serving best was by delivering on the strategy part. Though I absolutely still consider myself a teacher in the faith. I do that at church as well, but feeling like the way that I could serve best was by actually coming in, helping people more specifically with strategy or even doing some of it for them. Because sometimes there comes a point where, you can teach people how to do things, but it still doesn't make it their zone of genius. And that doesn't always serve them super well. And then sometimes it's frustrating or hard to, and then there's a point where sometimes it's hard to explain some of the nuances, depending on what it is. And so as I was just there, I was like, what feels good is actually doing it. I love creating. Some of my favorite days are when I get to sit down and write 10 emails for a launch or something, or make a plan. And so it really just led me to shift into more of a marketing and launch strategy role, with a little bit of like coaching and through some intensives and things like that, but really shifting more into done with you, done for you services, because it just felt like the best way that I could serve people in this place.
That's awesome. And I really think it's interesting to hear the journey of, even getting started in the cheerleading coaching, is that you really took your zone of genius, put it out there to give value. And then I love, how you said when you started the cheerleading blog that you asked your audience what it is that they wanted and really connecting in with them. And I see that same thing happened with going from coach to strategist, is that you got to, again, show up in your zone of genius, ask your clients questions, get the work, and then figure it out. I tend to see quite a few people kind of get in this area of like paralysis analysis, right? They want to have this perfect business model that, is in complete alignment, which of course is the goal. But I see it as where we really have to get into action to get that clarity. Can you speak a little bit about that and maybe even share with us a bit? Because I know that's been a big journey from you of moving from coach into this new role, and maybe just share a little bit of what that looks like behind the scenes. And, done is better than perfect, but that you're really moving closer to your true purpose and alignment.
Yeah, I totally agree that a lot of clarity comes from just doing stuff. I think it is really tempting. And I'm a recovering perfectionist. Like everything I do, I want to be perfect. I hate making mistakes. I'm so type A and anal about everything. But there does come a point when you just have to kind of accept that you're not always going to do that. And I am very much a person that lives in my head a lot of times. But what I was noticing was then that I wasn't actually getting feedback on those things. I was just kind of trying to figure it out without actually testing. And some of that actually comes from like, maybe you thought this was going to be the thing and then you start into it and then it turns out you don't like it as much as you thought, or there's something weird about that you hadn't quite figured out. And you don't get that kind of feedback internally or externally unless you actually start taking action. And I see a lot of people even just get stuck in, is this the right idea? Or is this the right service? Or, what is the 5-year plan? And frankly, I've stopped making 5-year plans because what I've seen in my whole life is that what I think is best, I often have those little shifts that take you off course from that, but they end up in a better place. And so what I'd rather do now is take action on the things that I know that I need to do right now, or the shift that I need to make right now, or the step that I need to take right this minute. Like, what's the one thing that I know that I need to do right now? And then the next step becomes clear, and then the next step becomes clear. And I think a lot of times we also have fear around and this was definitely true for me. Like, as I was shifting, I was like, what is my audience going to think? What's going to happen? Like, how do I communicate this? Will they be happy for me? Will they be frustrated? Will everyone disappear, off my list? And I just had to sort of mentally prepare for that and go, you know what though? If they're the right people, they'll stick around. And if they need the stuff that I had anyway, they would stick around. And I just need to be confident that I'm taking the right step and be okay with the consequences of that, because I know that this is what I need to do. But it was scary, and it does take a little bit of like finesse to communicate well through that. But I think what everyone will start to see is themselves evolve and moving with those evolutions. I think the most interesting people in any kind of business are the ones that grow and change and innovate things. And if we waited for perfect clarity to do any of that, we wouldn't have a lot of the stuff that we have now. And so I think it's really just about trusting yourself, trusting whatever you believe is guiding you, and taking those little steps, and then from there you get more clarity, and then you get more confidence, and that just becomes like a great cycle of like continuing to move forward because you're seeing the results of it.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point too. I mean, it's always more exciting to see somebody growing and changing and stepping more fully into their calling, and what an example you're setting for other people. And I think especially with what you're doing now with helping people with launches and the strategy, I mean, you're showing them that it can look different. And I know one of the things that you believe in is that you can do a lot with a little. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. And what does that mean, especially for your clients as they're looking to launch and build out these new strategies? Maybe you can give some kind of inside tips on what will help people to have those successful launches and to truly step into what it is they're called to do.
Yeah, I think we put there's a lot of pressure and comparison, I feel like. So the comparison then leads to pressure on ourselves to have a list of so many people, have a group of such a size, have a certain kind of influence. And I think we lose track of who we are specifically sometimes in the place, and what makes us different, and why people follow us and like us, and all of those things. And so I think sometimes we think, oh, well, I can't launch this new thing until I've got an audience of X size, or I can't until I fill up my one-on-one practice, I can't launch a lower end product because that'll just distract from it. And what I've actually seen is that a lot of that depends on you, and a lot of that depends on your audience and what even you're putting out into the world. And so what I have seen is in my coaching business, or I guess I can take this even back to my cheerleading business. When I first launched a product, I knew that they weren't going to do one-on-one stuff. That just wasn't going to be something they would do for a price point, because they were probably paying it out of their pocket rather than having schools reimburse. So they weren't going to do that. So I knew that I needed an accessible product based around something that they really cared about. So with a list of 150 people, I launched my first product, sold 12 of them, and made my first $1,000 like in a week, and had I waited until I had 1,000 people on my list or any of those things, I might have, not actually, I feel like the line would always be moving. Like I would continue to build up in fear some of those things, and maybe not actually take the steps to get the feedback from my audience to then present things to them. And even in my coaching business, what I was realizing was I was working with a lot of newer entrepreneurs, and before they commit to $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $100, $1,000 a month, they really needed to trust, and they also needed vehicles in order to get that money so that they could work with someone one-on-one. So launching lower price products actually became a key part of my business model, because I knew with them in such an early stage that they needed to be financially healthy, and but also to give them real tools that would help them, and also create a pipeline for myself, for my business, for sustainability. And so, I think by the time I launched my second product, or I guess it's technically my third product there, which was my membership site, I had about 400 people on my list, and I had sold two or three group programs, around 20 people each. And several of those went on to be one-on-one clients, or to work, whether that was long-term or in intensives or anything like that. And they also became amazing referrals for me, and all these different things. So I think there is room to be creative, and you can do a lot with a little. And I'd even say with that list, I filled up my one-on-one practice twice, because by the end it was 600 people. And so you can do a lot with a little if you are engaged, you've got the right people there, and that you're really delivering value and connecting with them empathetically and compassionately. I totally believe in like marketing with compassion, that conversions come best with compassion. And so we have to spend time paying it forward with the heart and the strategy to help them get to where they need to be. And if we do that, they'll pay us back,
Yeah. You make such a great point too, because I think so many people get caught up in the rules. Like you said, you have to have X amount of lists. And, again, I think coming from a strategy kind of mindset as well, is the numbers, we do look at the numbers. But I think, like you said, it's really being in touch with your tribe, with your community, understanding what their needs are, understanding what their desires are, and then going from there. I mean, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because being, type A and a strategist now, or, being a strategist, how do you have that balance of kind of like looking at, percentages and knowing kind of what the industry says about kind of, you should have an X amount of list to get X amount of sales. How do you balance those two and kind of knowing what's right to launch? And again, is it a low end product? Is it a group program? Is it one-on-one? Or is it some sort of combination of multiple levels for people to be able to work with you?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's not so much that we shouldn't look at numbers, it's that we should look at the right numbers. I think a lot of people put emphasis on size when really it should be emphasis on engagement. Or the people who are like already raving fans of you, and maybe there's a lot of those on your list. I remember in cheerleading, I was having like a 50% open rate, which is really crazy because, I was one of the only people giving them what they needed. And so by the time I was selling that, even now, there's only 2,800 people on that list. But over 300 people bought my products and services. So it's just a matter of like, how can we look at the right numbers to drive us? So if we see that we have, great conversion rates or great engagement, and yet we're not seeing some sales in that area for like the things that maybe we want to be selling at this high level price point, that might mean we need something that's a little bit lower barrier to entry. Because I was having free calls with people and they were, oh, I can't wait till I can work with you and all these different things. So I was like, what am I doing that I'm like making people, why am I making people wait to work with me? Why can't I make another level? Just because I'm supposed to fill up my one-on-one before I do those other things. Why do that when my strengths are in a different area in the first place? And then, it would be beneficial to them, and it would also help me build for the future. So I think we need to really focus on, again, the right kind of feedback and the right numbers. I think the other thing that really helped me was really being in touch with my tribe, asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of market research calls or free calls. Because then I was really getting a sense of, okay, before they invest, they really want to land 1, 2, or 3 clients, right? Well, which is understandable. You want to know that you can make money before you pay a lot of money sometimes. So I was thinking, okay, what can I create that will help them land those clients, from my unique perspective that leads into what they are really trying to accomplish, which will then give them that platform to then step into something else, right? So, and I think you'll start to see, and you can even ask in these market research, like, how much money are you willing to pay? Like, or what are you looking for in a product? What do you have time for right now? I think us looking really holistically at their lives and going, well, they don't have time to sit in a 2-hour masterclass once a week. That's just not going to happen for them. They need a 10-minute lesson and a couple of worksheets that they can work on. And maybe it takes 8 weeks instead of 4, but at least we're fitting into their lifestyle. So I think it's, again, figuring out who your audience is and what they're looking for, and then finding a way to match your expertise to a product or a mid-level service or something that serves them. It's a little bit easier for them to get into and is really, really helpful. Another example of this is my last month before actually making my switch over to doing more of like the done for you, done with you. I actually ran a special on some intensives that I'd had forever, but I was like, nobody's buying these. I don't know what it is. And all I did was I didn't make it less money. I actually just split it into a payment plan, and I sold 6 or 7 of them just by turning it into a payment plan. And I was like, okay, so I didn't actually change anything. I'm making the same amount of money from this. I just gave them a lower barrier entry to this, and it serves their needs. And so you can even get creative with other options. So it doesn't even have to be a lower price. Maybe it's just a different way for them to get into it, so that they have that confidence to trust you with that, and that you're actually serving their needs at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to, really wanting to serve and make a difference and being really generous. And I love that you bring up that there isn't just one way to run a business. And although we do hear a lot of coaches say, start with one-on-one, because obviously that is going to be, the highest level of income. But, I think back to when I started, and I wish that I would have started with, or had also some products, would have had a membership site, would have had places for people to land, not just in my one-on-one coaching. And so that's definitely something looking back that I would have done differently, because that's really made a big difference. Just like you said, people can come in, they buy a product or they join your membership site, they get to know you, they spend a little bit of money, you're able to help them make a difference. And then they want more, and they want more. And I love that idea to, kind of meeting their needs in regards to being flexible with payment plans or, different options like that. So what do you think holds people back from kind of thinking, about more than just one way of bringing clients in, and thinking about having products and membership sites and, one-on-one ways to work with them?
I think part of it is just that industry norm. I mean, if I look at my journey in online business, it's been completely backwards. I went from digital products to one-on-one coaching and now done for you services. Like it's the opposite of what normal people do. Right. And so,
That's awesome.
and I think the other thing is that I think there's also a lot of fear, and there's also a little bit of the strategic, know-how that they don't have. They don't know how to build a list to then sell a product. They don't know how to create a product that their people needs, or they're not even doing research or getting in touch or networking with people who could be part of their audience. So they don't even know what to create, or worse, they create the wrong thing. They spend a lot of time, a lot of money investing in that, and then not actually being able to sell it because it was the wrong product.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's just a lot of fear, because if you don't know how to sell, or you've never sold anything online, you don't have a copywriting and marketing background, it's really intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's a lot of that holds people back. But I would say probably the biggest thing is I encounter two types of people, at least in my audience. I've seen there's two types of people. The ones who want to do one-on-one because that's just what they love. They love coaching. They want to be in people's lives. And the other ones want to launch digital products, but haven't built an audience of any kind, right? And so I'm like, we need to find the balance here, because I know a lot of people who spent a lot of time building courses only for them to flop because they didn't have an audience, or it was the wrong thing because they didn't ask their audience first what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really a big believer in building an audience for whatever type of business you need. You need to be marketing, you need to be visible, and you need to be creating a space, whether that's your email list, your Facebook group, maybe it's both, a space for people to come learn more from you, raise their hand to be a part of that. And then you can create those feedback loops for yourself to then really, launch into any kind of service or product.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was integral to me, was really just to my success, was really making an effort to be in front of people wherever I could, spreading my message and making sure that was really clear, and giving them opportunities to come back to me so that I had these channels of communication with my people. And then, of course, like I said, I totally believe in serving the audience you have. So once you've built the audience, if they feel like the right people, which if you're doing marketing well, they are, then asking them what they want, or asking them around the thing that you want to sell, so that you get really good feedback and are able to create something that works for both of you.
Yeah, and it almost becomes a way to kind of pre-sell whatever it is. You're kind of seeding it out there, getting the feedback on, like you said, the deliverables, because I think that's a great thing to think about too. Is it a 2-hour masterclass once a month or once a week? Is it, little mini sessions, a couple times a month, and really understanding what the right match is. And I also love what I've done, and I've seen many others do as well, is giving people options within a program. So you have a group program, and maybe you have kind of the entry level, to get people in there, and then maybe you have a VIP for those that really want that one-on-one, touch. So I think that's a good option for people to kind of think about as well. Do you agree with that?
Totally. I think if it serves you and it serves them, then it's totally worth offering the option, even if nobody takes you up on it. At least right? Then you've got information. But I think you'd be surprised how many people maybe do want something that's a little more high touch alongside these lower end offers, because maybe they have that medium range of income to use there. And so that really does create, a difference for you and for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know you talk a lot about, really, making a difference for your audience and really helping them to be able to give back. And so I kind of want to transition into, talking about the Give Back Plan, because that is something, I have a huge heart for, and I really feel like, is important to have within your business and in your life, really. And so I know for you, coming from a nonprofit background, and we can even share a little bit about our kind of connection with that. If maybe you could even just talk a little bit about what giving back looks like to you, and what draws you to giving back, and we'll talk a little bit more strategically about what that looks like. So just kind of opening up with that.
Yeah. So I believe that stewardship is sort of like a three-pronged thing. It's about time, talent, and treasure. So I really look for ways to give back in those three areas to my favorite causes or to people in general. I know that one reason why I felt called to leave my job, which I actually loved, I'm like the one person who like started a business but really wanted to keep their job too. So I actually really, really loved my job. It was a missions organization. It like checked off almost every dream job box that I could have. And so it was really hard to leave that, but I really felt called to step out because I needed more time flexibility, whether that was for myself and my own sort of like emotional and mental recovery or even just like support as I've sort of navigated this and now settling into a nice place, almost a year later. And then even just, I feel like there were some ministry opportunities or some people in my life that needed attention that I wasn't able to give because I was working full time and had two businesses. Like that's not a normal thing that people do. So I didn't have weekends. I didn't have mornings. I didn't have lunch hours. I didn't have evenings. Like they were all work in some way. So it became really important and really apparent to me that I needed time to be able to do that. And so, yeah, when I give back, I look at, the causes that I'm most passionate about. And then I look at how I can serve in time, talent, and treasure those around me, but also those causes that I believe in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you bring that up too, that, if we don't have time to give back, and even just to the people that we love beyond, our family, that's really difficult. So I totally agree with that. And so what does giving back look like through your business? How have you connected, and maybe even talking about the organizations that you are supporting right now?
Yeah. So one of them is actually the organization I used to work for. So East West Ministries, of which Carrie is familiar. So we support a few missionaries through there, but we give monthly from my business income, but also our personal income, just because we believe very strongly in, like I mentioned before, we're a faith-driven family. So the causes that we give back to you tend to be faith-driven as well. And having firsthand seen the impact of this organization and the integrity of the people in it, it was really like it just was apparent that this was a place that I was still very passionate about. And so giving of the money that I make to them specifically. So we give financially right now. I have been on mission trips with them, so I've given my time as well. And I'm hopefully it's on my goals list to go on another one within the next 6 months, or 8 months, so that, I get to reconnect with some of that, which will be really fun. So I'm really looking forward to getting out of the country for a couple of weeks, which should be great. So that's one organization I give to financially. There is one that up here in the Dallas area, we just went through a thing called Revive Texas, held by an organization called Time to Revive. And it's really was focused on, getting out and having spiritual conversations with people in the Metroplex, because you'd actually be really surprised maybe how many people haven't heard about Jesus or haven't heard the truth about Jesus or don't really know much about him. And so, they held a 50-day campaign where it was just, individuals like me who would go out with their tools and just have conversations, love on people, give to people, and then, hopefully get to talk about Jesus as well. But if that didn't happen, that was okay. The main goal is to love on people. And so I made it a goal of mine to go out for one day every week during that time. So I was really able to actually go and share the gospel and have conversations and pray for people. And so that was really powerful in a couple of ways for me, not just to experience, and share what I believe so strongly with people, but also in having to create, space in my business for a day off every week to do that, which was challenging, but also really fun, especially just getting to see the fruit of that out there.
Mm-hmm.
And the last organization that I give both time and talent or time and treasure to, and a little bit of talent as well, I sometimes help them with some marketing things that they work on, is called Polished. It's an organization that's here in Texas mainly, but they're being invited to other places, so they may expand. But it reaches young professional women who, are trying to navigate career and faith, wherever they are in that arena. So I actually work with one of the chapters. I'm a, volunteer leader, and then also give financially to them as well. And that's just, I give my time through a luncheon once a month and, being in contact with the volunteers that I'm over and things like that, just to, help coordinate or pray for or show up and have, again, spiritual conversations with people. So that's really what practically giving back looks like for me in my business right now.
That's awesome. And I thought it's just a small world, I guess. Kate and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and I don't even know how we got started on the conversation, but I shared with her that I was going on a mission trip in the fall. And of course, she asked me where. And as we started talking about it, we realized that the trip that I'm going on in November to Nepal is actually with East West Ministries, the organization that she gives to and used to work for. So I thought that was just really a God thing that we got to connect about that. So I'll definitely excited about that. And I'm, learning more and more about that organization as well, and the work that they do, which is really impactful. So, and that's, kind of is one of the things that I hear pretty often is people not really understanding or knowing how to find an organization that they can either partner with both financially and time-wise. And I like that you brought up that you have multiple organizations, because sometimes it is just straight up giving of our finances. And then sometimes there can be that combination of actually giving back with our time and our talents as well, which really are two different things. So what would you say to somebody that was looking to find an organization that they could really partner with, and maybe even what your experience was in connecting with some of these others that you work with?
Yeah. So all of these organizations happen to be organizations that are connected to me personally in some way, like a friend or a church member, sometimes both, or my own personal experience with the organization. So I would say, like, the first thing is maybe even asking around, like, who do your friends support and why? What about that, really gets them fired up? Why do they love that organization? What do they know about it? So I think that's definitely part of it. And then even connecting with that organization in some way. So like I said, I happen to have personal connections in all of these. And so I knew the heart of the people. I know the results from the people that I'm hearing, but I think it's really important that you dig in and figure out, what you're comfortable with and what your version of integrity for them looks like. Because there are lots of and I can talk a lot about nonprofit integrity, because there's all these auditing and percentages and all the stuff that we could get into, because when you were a nonprofit fundraiser, that's what you do. And so I think it's really important that you know what that looks like or what you're comfortable with. I would say that the standard would be, that 80% goes to the ministry or the work, and then 20% goes to the operating expenses of the place. But there are some organizations that do that in a different way. So you kind of have to, or you look at it like a Charity Water, right? Who raises all the money separately, and then the money that you give goes straight to the water, right? To the wells. And so if that's more of a model that you prefer, I think so you need to sort of ask yourself that. And I'd say the third thing is, what are the things that you're passionate about in life? If you love animals, find some ways to support animals, or, walk dogs at the pound once a week. There's all sorts of opportunities. I think you'd be really surprised by the creative ways that you can give back once you actually start looking for them. So I'd start looking into, what you really love. Like I mentioned, for our family, faith is a big part of our lives, and because it changed us. And so we want to be giving back in that way. And we believe that supporting, that's one of the main ways that we can help change the world is by, addressing some of the spiritual things alongside some of the, real physical needs. And so we really made sure that we partner with organizations that help do that in tangible ways. And that we believe in the impact, that we, know people and trust the people. And then that we're not afraid to get creative. So I would say, like, once you start figuring out what you're passionate about, or like what your friends are sharing, you can even start looking up the organization. Sometimes there's like a volunteer page on the thing, and you'd be really surprised the different ways that you could volunteer. Like, maybe you can even just go in and do some admin work. We used to have opportunities for that at East West all the time, where we'd have somebody, who could come in and do some data entry for us or stuff some envelopes for us, because, we were working on some other things. We could do it, but it would be easier. So you'd be surprised, some of the, fancy pants people who would be so servant hearted and come in and stuff envelopes for us so we could do our jobs most effectively, with the resources of the ministry that they gave to us. So I think it's just kind of digging into yourself and then asking around and then looking for, the ways that you personally want to give back, whether that's financially, with your time, or, asking if they want your consulting around the thing. Because sometimes you'd be surprised. They would love to have a leadership consultant come in and do something, or, have me come in and help with marketing around those things. So you just never know what will happen.
Yeah, being open. And I think that's such a good recommendation. And one of our other guests talked about that a bit too, is just reaching out to your community and finding out what they're passionate about. Because what I realized too with my community is that some of my clients, some of the people in my community actually had their own nonprofits. And so I was able to kind of look into those and start to look at different ways to support them and what they believe in. And then again, like you said, I think really understanding where your passion lies. I really like kids are like, that just tugs at my heartstrings. So anything related around kids, and definitely, like you said, just going out there and loving on people in whatever form works for you, I think is super important. So thank you for sharing that. And so you kind of even just touched on a little bit in that last question, but I'd love to just kind of hear, with the work that you're doing, both in your business and with the ways that you give back, what is that overarching kind of thing that you want to make a change in the world? If you could kind of sprinkle fairy dust over our world today, what would be the thing that you would really want to see changed?
I think there's just a lot of, I want to see people freed to be who they are, right? Like freed to be who they're created to be. And I think that happens when, when it comes to my giving back. Like for me, I think a lot of that originates in a spiritual place. Like once we're reconciled in that way, and once we, are then able to hear and step into our calling through faith, then we are freer to be who we are, and we have divine guidance to do that. But I also see that in my business, because I believe that, me helping people do marketing, or me doing it for them, frees them to be more of who they want to be. So they don't spend as much time or energy or, expending all of that frustration or whatever is holding them back in that area, because now they have a clear plan, or they have somebody who's doing it for them, so they can just operate in their place, the place where they serve at highest capacity. So I really feel like that's how my business serves, is I want to serve in my highest capacity, which is what I preached and why I've been making all these like little changes along the way. But I also want to do that so that more people are able to do that for themselves.
That's beautiful. I love that. And you're definitely showing up in that way to really, to do that. So that's awesome. All right. We're going to transition into the lightning round. I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions. Just give us your off the cuff answer. So what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
It gets better. I think in this online space, it's and I would even say like, maybe something along mindset matters. That's something that I've really been experiencing a lot of lately as I've been transitioning and going through all these things. It's not that I don't know the strategy. It's that I may not yet be who I need to be to make those things happen for myself, or to believe in myself in that, and just to keep going in that direction. Whether that is, if I believe that this is the thing that I should be doing, which I do, I just need to keep going. And I know that the results will come. I just need to trust that. So it does get better. It does get more stable. It does get, it's always exciting and up and down, but I think just knowing that there's like hope in the future a little bit easier makes a big difference.
That's awesome. And can you share with us your favorite quote, mantra, or Bible verse?
Yeah. So the Bible verse that got me through last year and even is kind of undergirding a lot of what I am doing now is 2 Timothy 1:7. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, of love, and of self-discipline. So just reminding myself that, there is fear, but I don't have to live there. I have power, I have love, and I have self-discipline to step forward in the things that he has to me. And the verse before that talks about like fanning into flame the gifts that we've been given. And I was like, ooh, that's really good together, because he's talking specifically about like, sometimes we have fear around using our gifts or putting them out or being judged for our gifts, but we really just need to then take hold of the spirit that's in us, the power, the love, and the self-discipline that we have through that, and the understanding that we have of our gifts. And, the more we step in that, the less fear we have, but that fear isn't from the Lord, that fear is, something trying to keep us from serving our purpose. So that's really helped me to kind of stay brave and keep moving forward.
Yes, that's a great reminder. Thank you. And what is one of your favorite books, or a book that you would recommend to our audience, and why?
Good question. So a book that I find myself always recommending, it's actually a devotional book called 31 Days of Prayer for the Dreamer and the Doer. So it's for a person who has a business, probably a woman. I don't think it has to be. It's very pink though. So if you're a guy listening, it's a very pink book. So take that with what you will. But it's actually a book of prayers, and then it gives you some Bible verses and some devotional thoughts there. But it's 31 of them, from everything from like comparison to freedom to online influence and social media and all those different things that really just help you as you're moving forward in all these different things to have a grounded perspective. So I recommend it all the time. I'm actually going through it now because in every season of transition, I feel like I get called back to it. And so currently reading it and praying those prayers over my life has really been helpful.
Fantastic. And then lastly, what is one thing that you do every day that helps you stay in that forward direction of your mission?
I think it's a lot of, I recently started journaling again. So really just kind of taking time in the morning to journal, to think about where I want to go and where I feel like I need to go, and getting in that good mindset, and then making an action plan for the day. So I used to try to do that the day before, like make the plan, and then I get to the next day and get overwhelmed because something came in overnight that like whatever. And so allowing myself some of that flexibility by doing it in the morning rather than the day before. And then making sure that I take that mindset time to ground myself before I step into that. So there's a little bit more peace and calm around the actions that I need to do.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Well, Kate, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for, opening up your journey and sharing it with us. I just love how you have such a strong through line of really following your purpose and stepping into your zone of genius, even when it feels a little bit scary. And, I just wish you the best of luck. I know this new transition has been exciting, and you've got a lot of new things on the horizon. And so I'd love for you to share with our audience on where they can get connected with you to follow your journey and to see what you're up to.
Yeah, so you can find me on my website. It's kateboyd.me. I'm over on Facebook at, I think it's facebook.com/kateboydcreative. And then Instagram is @kateboydcreative. So you can find me there.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we put all that in the show notes so everybody can link up to you. So again, thank you so much for being on the show, and we will see everyone next time. So go out there and build your big heart business. Bye, y'all.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Big Heart Business Show. If you know someone that could benefit from this information, I would so appreciate it if you shared the love. And make sure to subscribe to this channel and leave a review. One last thing, if you're ready to fuel your big heart business with a consistent flow of cash and clients, head on over to carrieshepard.com/free gift to access a very special video series I created just for you. And don't forget, we are changing the world one big heart business at a time.